The title of this masterclass is The Future of Global Hospitality, What is Going to Really Matter? I'm not surprised. We have a lot of people that have signed up for this, over 100 countries, and so I know we'll be well represented around the globe. I always like to start with something personal, and so Neil, just something personal that you and I have in common. First of all, Neil was the co-chair of our Global Wellness Summit in Morocco. And that, I have to say, was one of my favorite summits. And so Neil, thank you for making that happen. And we had Bjarke Engels there, thanks to Neil. And basically, I think most of you know, Neil is smart, he's a visionary, and he's so well liked. And I just want to mention that there's something that Neil said once, and Neil, you might not remember this, but it's why I knew that you are cool. And that is that you said, well, when I get home from work or when I like to relax, I like to put on my James Pierce t-shirts. And I love James Pierce. My husband wears James Pierce. And I just think anyone that wears James Pierce t-shirts is cool and knows their, comfort. And so anyway, that's my personal story. And I'm now going to send it over to you, Nancy, for some things a little more serious.
Thank you, Susie. Well, actually, I'll just start by saying James Pierce are the only shirts I wear. So now I feel like I'm an incredibly cool company. So thank you. Perfect segue. A couple of Zoom instructions before we get to the master. Beatrice will keep you all muted. This is going to be a very large group, over 1,200 people registered from this call from 100 countries. So to eliminate background noise, we'll keep you muted. That way we can hear Neil for sure. You have a choice of view on your Zoom screen, top right. If you choose the gallery view, you'll see lots of faces, pages and pages of them on that little blue arrow. Or speaker view, which I urge you to use when Neil is talking. That makes Neil much more prominent on your screen. And so that really helps with hearing and understanding. Please feel free to use the chat window, which most of you are already familiar with and using, but it's the bottom center of the Zoom window. There's a little chat icon. If you click on that, a window opens to the right. And that's a great place to pose a question for Neil. Because of how many people are on this call and the nature of this, it's much easier if you put it in the chat window. Susie and I will be looking, and we will be sure to grab as many of those questions as we can for Neil. I know he very much wants this to be interactive. The recording of this, many of you asked during the call, this is recorded and it will be on our website, and we do hope you will share it. Now, it's truly a pleasure to introduce Neil. He is a global citizen, a hotelier of the highest caliber, a sustainability leader, a mentor to hundreds, and an inspiration to us all. As CEO of Six Senses, he's led the brand into a new era, having engineered the acquisition by IHG. Neil's focus has been to elevate Six Senses in terms of responsible design, green initiatives, and wellness programming. And under his leadership, they've opened resorts in Bhutan, Cambodia, Fiji, Portugal, Turkey, and the Seychelles, with new properties confirmed in Israel, India, Iceland, and the Galapagos. He sought to broaden the company's global footprint, enabling people to experience Six Senses also now in urban environments. So look for New York and London to open. I have seen the plans for New York, and they're amazing. Neil believes in creating demand through innovation, initiatives, and programming that are meaningful and tailored to every guest's health and well-being. And equally important is a requirement that local communities benefit and that resorts operate in harmony with the natural world. As Susie said, Neil is one of the most beloved people in the hospitality industry, and I'm so thrilled he could spend this hour with us. Neil also knows how to throw a party in the deserts of Morocco, and he plays a mean game of words with friends. He's going to begin this morning by giving us his view of how the world has changed and how hospitality is coming back, what customers are telling him, and what he believes is going to matter most going forward. My friend, Neil. Neil, you need to unmute. Bottom left or there you go.
There you go. What an intro, and thank you, Susie, and thank you, Nancy. I mean, clearly it's great fun to be here with you and to see so many names of so many friends coming up on the screen. That's wonderful. And just a little, and I'm not supposed to talk about deals that we haven't quite done yet, but last week we actually had an inquiry from, guess who, James Peirce, if we would like to do a project with him somewhere close to the United States. So it's really funny that you bring up his name, because it looks like we may even do some business with him. So that's great. As for what's happening in hospitality, my gosh, what a huge question. So I'd love to tell you a little bit about what we've experienced in the last few months. And, you know, having spent 3 months closing everything down, and taking us into somewhat of a depressed state of mind, we began to focus at Six Senses on what's coming, on what's in the future, and how to kind of regain that positivity as opposed to being just wrapped up in all this horrible stuff that was going on around us. And we've opened in the last month probably with 2 properties in Vietnam. We've stayed open in Bali. We opened in Portugal. China is open. So we have five properties open. And the interesting piece around that is when our first guests arrived in Vietnam early May. I mean, the first thing that they really wanted to do was rip off their masks and jump into the ocean and just really get back to a sense of peace and enjoyment and fun, and really wanted to forget about all this stuff that's going on, you know, to the point that we had to turn around and say, hey, you know, there are a few rules around here, there is some behavior around here, but what's very clear, and I think this also comes down to trust, is that, you know, at a certain segment of the market, there's just an expectation that we're going to get the hygiene and the safety right, and that we're just going to do that. So I actually don't want to spend a lot of time tonight talking about all those policies that we put in place and all the guidelines around safety and hygiene, enough to say that they're all there, that we're doing it just like every other hotel group is doing. But really, our guests are telling us, you know, they don't want to feel like they're in a hospital. They don't want to be in a clinic. They want to be in a wonderful environment where they are safe, where they can enjoy themselves and just keep going. The pent-up demand for product or hotels and resorts, particularly at the high end, is just huge. People are desperate to get back to some kind of, and I don't want to say reality, but just some kind of environment where they could stop thinking about all these things we've all been going through in the last few months. Reconnect, I mean, connection, as everyone knows and has heard about in the last month, is stronger than ever, absolutely stronger than ever, and to provide places and experiences that allow people to come back together and enjoy their families and their loved ones is tantamount. We are extremely positive as to the future, you know, and it's interesting that with IHG, our owner that was mentioned, who bought the company coming up to 16 months now, you know, their view of returning business is certainly not as optimistic as ours. And I think that we're fortunate enough to be in the high-end resort business. And we absolutely believe that segment is going to see a return to business much quicker than if one was managing, you know, mid-market business hotels in urban environments. We think they are going to take a lot longer. So the way we're looking at our business and the way we're forecasting it is that, you know, and the benchmark is for everyone is when do we get back to 2019 results? And we're looking at that as 21 is probably going to be, you know, 20% off where we were in 2019. And 22 is when we're going to get back to those levels again, which, as I say, is a little quicker than some of what the larger groups are saying. You know, I was talking about Vietnam, we did 90% occupancy in the month of May in Vietnam. We will do the same probably this month as well, perhaps slightly higher. Portugal, so you know, that was Asia, and China was showing good results as well. So then we opened Portugal and we thought, we wonder how the Europeans are going to behave versus the Asians. And we've been open 2 weekends now in Portugal. We hit 50-60% last weekend, and that's rising. So it doesn't look like it's too much different in Europe. And certainly all these countries so far, we've been reliant on domestic business and foreigners living in those countries. So as soon as the borders open, we're expecting an even greater surge of business. So as I said earlier, the future for us is looking, we think, very positive, and everyone is feeling a lot better about, you know, the next few months and through to the end of the year than we were, say, 90 days ago. What's important? Well, we're blessed in as much as our entire platform, if you like, is based on our pillars of wellness, sustainability, wonderful kind of activities in every place we go, and we're also blessed with some beautiful sites. So I can absolutely say, and we all know this, everyone on is in the wellness business, that in one form or another, that honestly nothing can be more relevant today than a really robust wellness and sustainability agenda. I mean, this is what everybody is looking for, and our customers are telling us the same. So, you know, it's about being disruptive within our own business. It's about creating partnerships with great people. It's absolutely about innovation. I mean, Anna and her team scattered around the world for the last, you know, 2 months have just been working on, you know, new initiatives and how is our wellness programming going to look when we come out of this the other end and everything starts to open? How do we make it more accessible to more people? Shorter types of programming that you can do in a day or in a half a day, as opposed to doing, you know, lengthy programs. They will also exist, but to broaden, what we're saying is about broadening and deepening our wellness and sustainability offerings, because there just isn't a better time in the world to be doing that. I was talking to my dear friend Julie Butt a couple of days ago, and you know, we were talking about, you know, the fact that frankly wellness is no longer optional. And certainly this period that we've been going through has given us time to think a lot about it. You know, she said, in her words, it's a revolution that we're going through, and we can all individually decide the role that we wish to play in wellness. As I say, I am absolutely blessed and lucky to have an extraordinary team of wellness professionals around me. So I feel that we're in a good place, and the more we can do, and the more relevant we become. And again, to quote my friend, there's this unfolding magic of potential out there that is available to all of us, I believe, with the right degree of creativity and innovation that goes on within our organizations. Now, can I take a breath now, Nancy? What?
You may take a breath, Neil. Well done. And there's great appreciation for you in the chat window, which we will be sharing. So everybody, we do record that as well and share that. And you'll see that people are very encouraged to hear optimistic perspective on this. And I think, certainly Six Senses is in an incredible position because of the way the brand has been, built to begin with. So the focus on, your focus is the focus that everybody now seems to be looking for. Can you talk about anything that you're going to do differently at Six Senses as a result of what you've learned through this?
Well, I think we're going to do a few things differently, some around wellness, some around other things. I mean, one of the elements that we're looking at very closely, I mean, some of you know that we're opening next year our first Six Senses place in New York, which is our club concept, if you like, that started off as being very much driven by, a strong wellness agenda. And then, we felt, well, the wellness absolutely needs to be there, but it also needs to be very social. It needs to be fun, and it needs to have, clearly a wellness agenda, because that's what we do. But it needed to be a lot more fun. So we dialed down a little bit wellness. Well, given that the place is not open yet, we still have time to readjust it. So certainly in the last couple of months, we've stepped back and we've said, bring the wellness piece front and foremost once more, because as I said earlier, there's nothing more relevant. It's even had us, thinking and spending time on the nature of work, just generally. And, all of us in these last months have spent most of our time at home and doing Zoom and Teams meetings. And although not perfect, it's interesting to see and how we're all getting used to it. And so I think, or we think, that the whole nature of work is absolutely going to change, and also that it's no longer about just, do I work from home or do I work in the office? We definitely believe that it's not going to return to how it was before. Although there are those out there that don't agree with that, and those that believe that people have short memories, we don't think the memories will be quite this short on this occasion. We think that the kind of conventional or more traditional now shared workspace is also a little bit challenged. So one thing that we're looking at is, how do we perhaps integrate more working environment as well within the club, without it becoming that it doesn't feel like an office. And again, it's not working at home, that there is a social element to it, that it's very comfortable, the way spaces are laid out and seating is laid out, but the work that people are going to absolutely change permanently the way they work. And that doesn't mean they'll never go to the office or they'll never work from home, but we believe that the whole sense of optionality around that is very important, and that people are going to do a bit of everything. So we're making some changes there with Six Senses Place, which is also under development in London. So we will have those two cities. We've put some packages out to promote our Bali hotel in the last couple of weeks, and one is about work from Bali, and we have a lot of villas there, but we also have about 25 pretty large suites in a building that we've said we could take that building and offer it up even in Bali as a work from home kind of thing. So to bring people, whether it's from other parts of Asia or from Indonesia in itself, to come and say, all right, I'm going to go and work from Bali for 3 months. So this is something we would never have thought about before. And we're just starting to re-engineer, a lot of things around how we can promote our offer, and all the time backed up by, a sustainable development, great service, great food, amazing views of wherever, but creating environments that are appropriate for work as well.
And you've created also a Six Senses at Home program throughout this time. Is that something you see continuing?
Well, we do, and Anna's team were quick to jump on that with our marketing group at the end. I mean, it was very interesting. We immediately and intuitively felt that we needed, when everything shut down, that we absolutely needed to be out there and keep our name out there, and certainly not to be promoting resorts or hotels, but how could we be relevant and keep a presence? So what was put together happened in about 5 days, and we started off with yoga classes and exercise classes and meditations and some shamanic ritual type stuff, and all that was kind of put up within days. And we really had no idea what, no idea what we were doing. We knew what we were doing, but the technology piece of it was new to us. We had a Zoom bomb, and one thing Anna was doing that, we were hit with some porn activities through a meditation or an interview with somebody. So we had to get used to all of that. And, we had our head of yoga doing a class from his living room in Delhi. And so it was very raw, the footage, and it was very unproduced. But what became very clear to us, very quickly, that was perhaps the most compelling part of it. The content was there, but the fact that it wasn't slick, it wasn't produced, that it was really coming from a very good place, I think was the success of it. Now, everybody else and their mom followed suit very quickly. So we moved, we kept doing some of the wellness stuff. We're still doing some of the wellness stuff, but we started with the cooking classes. We started with other activities. We had sustainability talks. We now kind of, Anna has something called Friends with Six Senses, where, once a week she interviews a really interesting personality. So we have our own little talk show going on now. And so the whole platform has become a lot wider. And what is very clear is that we absolutely need to continue this and develop it and professionalize it, not too much, but enough to keep going. And that's what we're going to do. And we will, we're actually going to hire a head of digital, which we've never had before. And we've been doing some cool stuff. one of my colleagues just reminded me, we set up a marine biology class and course for kids from our hotel in the Maldives. So, and the response has been amazing. And this really was organized for children. And yet we found that probably, you know, half the people that signed up are the adults. And it's just really nice stuff. And we feel that it's, you know, it's fulfilling a lot of goals. It's keeping our name out there, but it's also doing some good, and that's important to us. And the content is compelling and interesting. So it's here to stay for sure.
Neil, you touched on technology for a minute, and you're hiring a digital person. Can you talk about any integration of technology and what you do and what you see, any successes around that? Because it seems like the Six Senses brand would be, in a way, not anti-technology, but counterintuitive to technology. It's a place, it's about nature, about being in nature, about respecting the indigenous landscapes and you know, and the communities and stuff. Can you talk a little bit about where you see technology in this,
Yeah.
and for hospitality in general?
Well, I mean, we don't believe that the two are, you know, exclusive to each other, that we need to remain extremely high touch, and everything that you said just now about environment and what we believe in and quiet and nature, I mean, is all absolutely true. But the reality is people do want to stay connected, and it's more stressful at times not to be connected than to say, all right, I'm going to do an hour or two on it every day. You know, our psychographic around our customer, and we always talk about psychographics as opposed to just demographic, is very wide in terms of its age group. And you know, we have guests who are in their 20s and guests who are in their 80s. And it's more about like-minded people than it is about an age group. And consequently, we do feel that we need to have a robust technology platform. You know, whether it's in our app, or ability to talk to people, ability to access people all the time. You know, I'm less concerned, particularly in a resort, about having your phone, you know, open the door to your room. You know, perhaps that's a bit more important in an urban environment where speed is a little more important. But things like that I don't think are necessary for our resorts. But to have that connectivity, to be able to talk to who you want to talk to, staff as well at any time, and is really important. So our approach to the app, it's taken us a while to do our own mobile app, and that's just about to be launched, and we're pretty excited about that. So
and
yeah,
you've done some pretty innovative things around sleep and other kinds of things that require technology. Yes.
Yeah, we have. I mean, we have a sleep program that really starts with tracking. You know, if you choose to be on the program, that it starts with tracking your sleep over 2 or 3 days, and at which point those results go to our wellness head, or sometimes we call them a sleep ambassador, that will meet with you, talk through your results, and then effectively kind of advise and opine on what you ought to be doing to, you know, from a lifestyle perspective that's really going to improve sleep. Clearly that also, you know, we then put you with the chef. So, you know, the food part is impacts sleep as well. But it really starts with the physical environment, you know, the nature and the quality of the bed and the bedding. I mean, it took us 2-3 years to organize the right bed and the right bedding and equipment that would actually then we move into the advice and the help from people in the spa, people in food and beverage, and everywhere else. Yeah.
Neil, I'm gonna shift your shift the conversation for a moment to something that we talk about a lot, and that is wellness for all. And at this time, there has been more and more conversation about this because of the need, people reaching out for the kinds of science and services that are offered through the wellness industry at a time like this. What's your thought about that, and how, as a brand, is Six Senses going to address this in a meaningful way?
We're addressing a lot of a lot of things, right? And I mean,
I promised I'd put you on the spot.
Yeah, there's so much that we can do with the resource that we have. I mean, certainly, one of the important pieces of the new work that's under development, as I said earlier, is to create greater access to the wellness programs that are perhaps not quite as all-encompassing, that you don't have to do a 4 or 5 day sleep program or anything that goes on for too long, that we can give you choice that allows you to do more, that is perhaps less expensive and less all-encompassing, that allows us to provide a different kind of wellness product alongside what we've historically done. I mean, we've all struggled through our industry over the years is how do we make wellness affordable or more affordable? I mean, something we've all been talking about for, I don't know, since I think the first summit, 12 years ago or however long it was. And I'm not sure that we've done an especially good job as an industry at that. And we continue to look at solutions. In our case, we're not inexpensive, right? As a brand, we're not inexpensive, and that's the segment that we're looking at. But certainly, with IHG, who are very interested to dig deeper into wellness generally, and through raison d'etre, our sister company that you know about, that Anna and Anna Kari and the team run out of Stockholm. They are doing work, with IHG that perhaps over time can take us down that road. I don't think it's going to be a very, very fast road, but definitely the intention is there from IHG to use the deep wellness resource we have, and to take it through their portfolio as best they can. We had said when IHG bought us, the question was, would we do Six Senses spas in other brands, in say Intercontinental or some of the other brands, and we very kind of politely suggested that probably wasn't the right thing to do, because Six Senses was a brand in its own right and needed to be in certain places, and we were more interested in doing more hotels. But that what we ought to do, and what Anna's team ought to do, is to create brands for their other hotel brands. So that's kind of the road we're going down, and the hope is that through that process and the work that RDE is doing, over time, we're going to be able to come up with concepts that will allow greater access to all this knowledge that everybody here has, and that it doesn't have to cost as much as it currently does in the fancy hotels.
For those who don't know, the Anna that Neil refers to frequently is Anna Bjerstrom. She may or may not be on this call. I don't have time to scroll through the 15 pages of people who are currently in, but Anna, if you are there, feel free to say hello. And Anna did a masterclass for us very early on in this journey we've been on together, and hers was about creativity. And that seems to be a driving force in what you're doing, Neil. And I think what the people, the brands, the companies that are, perhaps poised for continued kind of success are looking at is how to be creative at this time, how to leverage what they have and what they know, and how to come out of this with new ideas as opposed to trying to maintain something at a time when things are very different. Can you just speak for a moment about creativity as a driver for all kinds of brands at this time in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we spend a lot of time attempting to innovate and create and have invested time and money and resource. And we started a wellness innovation team, which has about 4 people. That's evolved over the last couple of years into just a general innovation team. So, 70% of the work that group do is just about sitting around and creating content, and we think that that's really important. It's really important for everybody to enter into that process. Creativity is interesting, because people say, I'm not creative or I'm creative. We actually believe that creativity is a science, and it can be learned. And so much so that, we're currently working with a creative design group out of the US, and we have a bunch of teams that include groups in every hotel currently that are going through, have chosen a topic and are basically being trained to work through this topic creatively and come out with some incredible results. And in 2 weeks from now, we're spending the afternoon, and each team is presenting to us. So I think it's all great stuff, but everybody can do it. It's about having the right intention and not being intimidated by what one sometimes perceives as these overly creative types who brainstorm all day long and so on. There is a process, and if one takes the time to understand the process, everyone can be creative and everyone can be innovative. If you've had good groups of people around you, we can all do it.
That's very encouraging. And my background, I went to art school, and my strong belief is that creativity is really about problem solving, and that is something people can learn to do. And I think this is one of the most valuable, rich times to be focused on that in all aspects of business. We touched on wellness for all, and we talk about 2 things. Susie, did you want to jump in here?
Go ahead. I'll ask a question after you finish this question.
Okay. And that is wellness for the planet, wellness for people and wellness for the planet. Those are the things that we talk a lot about in our organizations and that people are paying a lot of attention to. I know that the planet is very keenly in your sights, in all of your properties. Can you talk a little bit more about how you approach that and how you measure the impact that you're having in those locations?
Well, Six Senses has always been, long before we were involved, but has always been a leader in sustainability. I mean, 25 years ago, Six Senses had, people creating organic gardens and growing their own food and using natural materials. I mean, right from the beginning. So, you know, since our stewardship of the brand, which was in 2012, we've attempted to drive this even further. And, you know, initially we were set up as wellness and the sustainability departments were very separate. But it didn't take too long to realize that they ought to come together, and really it was one conversation. As you say, wellness planet, wellness people. I mean, lots of ways to put it. So the two groups are working, you know, seriously, closely together. You know, some of the things that we do. I mean, firstly, our commitment is also financial. That 0.5% of total revenue in every property is allocated to sustainable activities. And, you know, pre-2012, that money used to come to Thailand, and we would, you know, the company would use it for global initiatives. We stopped that. Now, if money is raised in the Maldives, it stays in the Maldives and is spent around, you know, marine activities and manta ray research and so on. If it's somewhere else in the world, it's what's relevant to that place. So there is a financial commitment that goes in. We, a few years ago, brought in, we mandated that every hotel have a sustainability manager. You know, historically in hotels, it's perhaps, you know, the GM's secretary, God bless her, who ends up running a green team and has a meeting once a week. And you know, the results will always be dependent on the resource you put against it. So we have had for the last few years sustainability managers, and we've seen how that has increased. And one of the changes that we've made during this period of what do we look like when we come out the other end is that our sustainability manager be elevated and become absolutely part of the executive team of a hotel, so that he or she will sit at the table with, you know, the rooms director or the F&B director and really make sure everyone is kept honest and so on, right? We look at sustainability very much inside and outside, you know, from internally. You know, we've never, you know, plastic straws just don't exist. Plastic amenity bottles, the shampoos have never exist. There's no overuse of paper. I mean, from a guest-facing standpoint, we've been doing this for a long time, and it's very much part of our DNA. But we did launch ourselves a challenge a couple of years ago that we would be plastic-free, 100% plastic-free by 2022, which is a huge initiative. It's, you know, the guest-facing material is easier. It really is about, you know, the challenging part is around supply chain, and particularly, you know, when you're in a remote island and the fisherman comes in the morning with the fresh catch in a plastic container, you know, and it's like how you educate and teach that we're not going to buy the fish unless it comes in anything but plastic and styrofoam. You know, how to train chefs and to tell chefs that they, you know, can no longer cook sous vide and go through, you know, 100,000 plastic bags a year where they're steaming fish or a chicken breast or whatever. So
Neil, I'm going to ask Susie to jump in now with a question, because I've got a bunch more questions in the chat thread that I'm going to get to.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Nancy. Neil, thank you so much. This is very valuable. I have two questions, but the first one, I wondered if you could share some of the numbers, because I was so impressed when I heard what you were doing virtually and how many people were participating virtually. I don't know if you have those numbers, but I know that they were quite large and impressive.
Well, there was a time when we got into the thousands, you know. Now, in all honesty, as places start to open up and people start going out again, you know, the engagement numbers are not quite as robust as they were 60 days ago, which is why we stopped. We didn't stop anything, but we looked at how do we continue to keep this very relevant and tweak it and shift it going forward, that we will continue to have that rhythm of the high engagement. So it's been a very interesting learning experience for us, given, as I say, we weren't too experienced in this at all. You know, we did get to thousands.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And my other question, and this is a springboard from a session that we had a few weeks ago, because we've started talking a little bit more about racial injustice. And I'm committed to bringing this up, and I'm wondering, not so much from a brand, but from an industry point of view, what do you think we could do or start doing? It's not something that we've had a great you know, history of success with. So I'm just wondering, because you're visionary, thoughts on that topic.
Well, I mean, it's always, and I was actually on a hotel guy panel, an airline panel last night in New York, or last night here, but yesterday morning in New York, and obviously it was it was a big subject, and you know, from a hotel perspective, it's, you know, how many minority general managers do we have, and you know, how many minority managers do we have? We don't look at it just as, I mean, I'm not in the US right now, so haven't lived through everything that you're living through currently. So for us, it's not particularly about black, it's about giving opportunities to minorities and being sure that we are training people in the countries that we operate that allow us in a very structured way to, over time, reduce the number of expatriates that we have in management. So that is 100% about education, and about finding people and going into hotel schools and really engaging with the minorities and giving them great possibilities to progress in their careers. You know, the conversations last night on this panel relative to particularly the travel industry was, and particularly around, you know, the black component of the travel industry, which is pretty low. And, you know, and it did come back that, you know, the demand from the communities was not there, that it wasn't that people were turning people away or anything, but it just wasn't there. And the outcome of that conversation was that we all needed, the travel industry needed to just, again, do a better job in communicating the benefits of being in that industry. And it's incumbent upon us to go out and attract people in many different forms to engage. And I mean, I think that's the same with wellness as well, you know. I tell you the truth, I'm not sure. I mean, I look at our own spas. I mean, we're in countries where the majority of our employees are from that country. So it's not something that perhaps we've thought about to the same extent as everyone's thinking about it now, ourselves included, because we do employ and train and develop local people to be the best that they can possibly be. The reality is we all have to be better at doing this and engaging in this, particularly in the Western world, perhaps more so than some of the developing world, where the problem is way more prevalent. And it has to be about education and going out there and perhaps providing more scholarships and just being very, very mindful and very specific about goals and just damn well making it happen, because it's shameful, actually, in many ways. And this is once more a huge wake-up call. You know, I was living in LA during the Rodney King stuff in the, I guess in the early 90s. And the sad part of all of this is it just doesn't seem like we've come very far since then. And so, I mean, I think the good news is that people are waking up to it, and people are talking and speaking and engaging again, and we have to keep that going.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Susie, for bringing that up. It's something that's been, you know, very important. Obviously, this country has been, you know, is really in the eye of the storm of this right now, and we're trying to, as an organization, do what we can. And so one of those things is to raise that issue in every conversation and keep it top of mind. And it clearly, Six Senses and your approach to involving the people in the communities in which you operate is an enormously important model for that kind of work, and very good in the wellness industry and very unique. And with the few minutes that we have left, I'm going to ask you, Neil, because you have worked for a lot of, run a lot of brands, lived all over the world, have a really unique global perspective. Are there three pieces of advice, three things you would say right now that hospitality brands should be thinking about or doing?
Well, I certainly think everybody has to be thinking about wellness. And, you know, a lot more people today are saying they're thinking about wellness than there were years ago, or even 5 years ago. But it ought to be reinforced, because we genuinely believe that the future of many of our hotels is how well we can execute on a level of wellness activity that is meaningful. It's not to say that everyone has to be you know, a full-blown destination spa, but as I said earlier, you know, wellness is no longer optional. All right, I think that you know, humility is a good thing, and if nothing else, what we've all been going through the last months has created a great deal more humility. And the one thing that is very heartwarming to me, and I've said this a few times in the last weeks, is how much kinder people are than they were 90 days ago. And I don't know if it's advice more than it is a hope and desire that that remains in place. That, and, you know, some of my colleagues are talking and friends are talking about, well, aren't we more conscious today? And should the future be about a greater consciousness? I mean, I think that's an interesting concept that requires some debate and conversation as to what that exactly means. But, you know, from a higher level, I think there is definitely more awareness about things that are more important. You know, our whole premise going forward is how do we encapsulate the meaning of connection and reconnection, and how do we make that part of everything that we do? It's always been our mission, but that is also essential today, and what people are absolutely reaching out for. How do we connect in a meaningful, heartfelt, intentional way? You know, So there you have it.
Yeah, well, I think certainly, it has come up a number of times that one of the silver linings in all of this has been a kindness that's come up, that people doing things for other people, paying attention, people bringing meals, cooking for shelters, doing things, paying much more attention to the humanity deep within us all, I hope.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask you two more thoughts to close this with. One is, what keeps you up at night? And the other is, what fuels your optimism?
Yeah, what keeps me up at night now is a little different to what it was a while ago. The fact that we have so many people, earning, on half pay or more, or short weeks, and the economic hardship that has brought to many of our 4,000 or so employees, hosts we call them, is really hard. It's hard for everyone. We're thankful that most everyone still have jobs, but still just the compensation piece of it is complicated and is hard. And I think a lot about that, and try to get creative as to how we can mitigate some of this and provide help in other ways. We created this huge host wellness thing called Mission Wellness, which took us 2 years to produce or to create. And that, thank God we did that, because I think that's been particularly helpful to all our people through this program. My optimism is we will be back. I have no doubt we will be back. People want to travel. People want to go to interesting places. Some of the talk now is that rather than rushing around and going to 3 countries in 6 days, is to be stiller, is to go to a place, to enjoy it, to understand it, to feel the culture and everything else it has to offer, but to kind of slow it down a little bit. But I am absolutely optimistic about the future of our industry. It may take 6 months, a year, 18 months, but we will be back, and we will be in a stronger place than ever.
Neil, thank you so much. I'm going to ask Beatrice to unmute so we can give you a global round of applause for your spending your evening with us. And thank you so much. This has been recorded. It will be shared on our website. Neil, you'll be invited back in a couple of months to give us an update.
I can go for a run or I can bake.
Thank you, Neil.
Wonderful.
Yeah, everybody.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Neil.
Neil.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Neil.
Everyone.
Susie and Nancy too. Great programs.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Beatrice, thank you.
You have a great everybody.
Trish, Susie, Nancy, you are a great team.
Thank you, Neil, Nancy, Susie.
Thank you.
Thanks,
This is awesome. I love these. God bless you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Everyone.
Gracias.
Thank
Desde
you.
Lima, Perú.
Hello.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great one.
Bye.
See you all soon.